Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Daily Eye Show. I'm Salim Asgarally, and this is.
Hi, I'm Veenaa Bakshi.
And we are going to be talking about something really interesting, Veena, today, and that is about equal opportunity and if there is really
a level playing field.
A level playing field. On that journey to success, health, wealth, and happiness, do we have an equal playing field for all?
I say no. We don't. At least in today's day and age, Salim, there's so many things that are happening. There actually are so many opportunities in terms of education, in terms of careers, in terms of a lifestyle, in terms of creating a life. There are the opportunities. So where do we go wrong?
Yeah.
So I believe that there isn't a level playing field.
I too believe there isn't a level playing field, and I think it's not something that has just happened today. That's the way it's always been.
I agree.
Yeah. So when you go back to the days when there were monarchies and there were rulers and then they had their subjects. So obviously the ones who were more entitled, more privileged, the nobility, royalty, they got better access to opportunities. Whereas those who were down the ladder suffered. And I think it hasn't really changed very much today. The wealthy, the rich, the famous still get better access to opportunities than the common person.
See, where I disagree is in the monarchies. If you're going back to the ages of the monarchies, there was a set system of society. Mm-hmm. So it's not like anybody really suffered in the sense. It's because everybody had a kind of a job, a privilege, a standing, a status. In that, yes, and it was very clear that if this was the monarch and that was going to be his family, then the monarch's son was going to be the prince and take over the monarchy. But at the same time, the halwai ka beta was also going to be a halwai.
No, but was the king's son really able to take over the monarchy? That was also a question, and that is where we see that certain dynasties completely failed because the successor was just not competent enough to take over charge.
And that is exactly what is happening even today. Is really any of these industrialists or any of the big businesses or any of the doctors or architects or whoever, are their children really capable of being in that position that they're expected to be?
Exactly.
And today, while opportunities have opened up, okay, like for instance, let's take the UPSC exam.
Yes.
There are ways and means today which I don't think were really available some time back. Maybe a few years ago, I'm saying about say 20 years ago, 25 years ago, UPSC exams again, Salim, were privileged. Mm-hmm. Okay, so an IAS family was expected to continue in IAS.
With the IAS.
Today, there are classes for what we may call an underprivileged lot of students to aspire to be an IAS, to aspire to be an IPS.
Yeah.
Okay, those classes are there. Yeah. So they are actually competing with somebody from what we'll call a privileged background.
Right.
Okay, but when I say there isn't a level playing field, is at the end of the day, that privileged background child has got behind him or her parents definitely, a society which is connected, money privilege and economic privilege.
Yes.
You know, and a class privilege.
Yes.
Which that child from an underprivileged background may not have.
Right.
So even if that child from the underprivileged background, and there are cases, does make it to IIT or to the UPSC or whatever, we do hear of a lot of cases of suicides being committed because they're just not being able to keep up with what is expected of them or what they should be doing.
Yes.
They're just not being able to keep up either with studies or with an economic balancing with, you know, friends who are walking around with all these fancy Apple gadgets and we don't have it.
Exactly. So the pressure on, the peer pressure that happens, you know, in these kind of schools and institutes where on one hand you have kids from very wealthy backgrounds coming in and the other not so wealthy, and then there is this entire competition that happens, which is where, you know, somewhere uniforms came in to create a kind of parity that everybody should look and at least feel the same. But then there were other layers to it. The uniform by itself did not suffice.
Yes.
Then it was the socks that you wore, maybe the special, compass box that you carried, the gadgetry that you carried.
The
There were
watch
no
that you
norms
wore.
on that, yes. So everything led to that. And then, yes, as you said, suicides did happen. Because of peer pressure, and that they couldn't just compete in the same manner. They felt let down. But when you look at it, Veena, from the historic point of view, as we were just talking about earlier, that there were monarchies and everything else. There was slavery in America.
True.
Yes, there were the blacks who were enslaved. So there was the American Revolution, or the American Declaration of Freedom, which happened somewhere, I think, in the 1700s, 1756. I'm not very sure of the date. But that was done to create equal opportunity for all, for the blacks as well as the whites. And then you have the French Revolution, and so on and so forth. They've tried socialism, they've tried capitalism, where they've tried to have equal opportunity given to all, but it hasn't really worked. So what really is the solution then?
But coming to think of it, Salim, to a large extent, there is slavery in India even today.
Yes,
The caste system hasn't disappeared. In fact, it's gotten worse.
yes,
And today, within this caste system, see, we have a lot. What I'm talking of is there are so many cases today of children who are coming from, every day we read in the papers, is a cobbler's child, a cobbler's daughter is a topper in the UPSC exam, the IAS.
Yeah.
A rickshawala's son has gone into IIT.
yeah,
And you hear this all the time around you, and you're like, wow. I mean, you're proud of it. You think like, okay, here's a level playing field because now everybody gets to be a doctor. Everybody gets to be an engineer. But that's not how it is.
yes,
Because at the end of the day, one is, Salim, there's a lot of there's a disparity, even while that education is happening. And in fact, this is something which I read, which was that there's a privilege bias which is hardwired within us.
yeah,
Since we are very, very, very small, it's hardwired into the system, and it goes beyond careers and education.
true.
So that privilege bias which has been hardwired. So basically, the kind of schools that you're looking at. So you have somebody who's coming from A-lister schools, and you have those who are coming from the municipal schools. So let's say, for instance, you have two kids who are 95%ers.
Yeah,
Okay, and one has all the privilege standing behind him or her, the other one doesn't.
yeah,
Okay, so, and both of them, let's say for instance, hypothetically, both of them in some manner managed to get into a medical college. Okay, so we're still talking on somebody who's now they're still continuing at par.
yeah,
Okay, there are many things that do happen. One is that the system itself, this privilege bias that you're talking of, those students who have come over here on a privilege bias look down upon that underprivileged child as having stolen somebody's seat. Firstly, ragging begins. They're constantly being told how they don't deserve to be there. Okay, once that is done, two is in terms of the books and the educational material that they need. Some of it they have to buy, it's expensive. Once they're out of that medical school, Salim, do you think they really have the opportunity? Let's say they make it through those years. Do they really have those opportunities of setting up a clinic, of getting the kind of apprenticeship that they want, getting the hospitals that they want, getting to work with the doctors that they want? I don't think that exists.
It's true. It's very true. But then this is the very issue that has been spoken about, has been discussed. Political scientists have discussed, researched it. They've come out with theories on it, from Hobbes to Rousseau to, a whole lot of political scientists have spoken about it. And they have come to certain conclusions about it, such as they talk about what is called as social luck. Okay, so social luck talks about, the kind of family you come from, the kind of friend circles that you have, the kind of inheritance that you got, which probably gives you a leg up in life. Yeah. Then they have things like, natural luck, which is you may be good looking, bad looking, you may be more intelligent, less intelligent. So all these factors that come into play, when you're out there in the real world. Very often when you're in school and college, you're told you're rewarded as per the effort you have put in. Everybody's told that they are fine, you'll have all done a great job, Yeah, but when you come into the real world, it doesn't play out like that. In the real world, there is a process of natural selection, which is the natural selection of the economy. Yeah, so those who are better equipped to provide services, to provide goods, to go out there and do what they need to do, get selected. So, yes, the one who cannot set up his medical practice does have, a cross to bear. But at the end of it, when you really look at it in all its complexity, you probably would come to the conclusion that the person who really wants to do it and who is really talented will finally do it. Though it may be more difficult, it may be a path that is not so easy to tread on. Whereas the one who got it more easily, it's not necessary that equal opportunity is equal to equal outcome. So outcome and opportunity don't really go hand in hand all the while. You get what I'm saying?
I kind of disagree and I kind of agree. Okay, I mean, right now I'm kind of seesawing.
Yeah.
See, one is that yes, I mean, this is a thing that's been said and done to death with, I think, is that if there's a will, there's a way, and if somebody wants to do it, they will do it, and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yes? But it's like this, Salim, is that if you want to go from point A to point B, for example, okay, and it's a good day.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is no rains and the streets are not flooded and whatever. So whichever transport you take, whether you drive, you go by a Mercedes Benz, or you go by a bus, or you go by a train, or you go by an auto, you go by a scooter, whichever. It's a good day, and you will reach where you want to go.
Yes.
Okay, maybe you'll reach a little sweaty, a little crumpled because you're traveling by public transport versus traveling in an air-conditioned car. You reach looking good. That's the only difference. But you'll reach.
Yeah.
But for instance, if the streets are flooded, the trains are running late, there's a whole lot of rubbish going on that's working against you. You live many, many kilometers away. I mean, this I'm using as an example, right? And so therefore, by the time you get to wherever you're getting, if you do, obviously that opportunity has gone away, despite you working towards it.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's just that you don't have that privilege of being able to get there. While what you rightly said is there is no guarantee that the privileged child who got out of that medical school eventually turns out to be a better doctor or not.
Exactly.
There's no guarantee of that either.
Yeah, and coming to doctors, let's say, God forbid, we don't need to, but if someone were to need a brain surgery, who would you go to? Where would you go? You would obviously look for the best brain surgeon, right? So as a society, what are we doing? We are rewarding competence. We are constantly endorsing and re-endorsing competence because it's competence that produces value in our society, and it is that value which gets compensated and paid for. So when you're talking about discrimination on the basis of someone being more privileged than the other, it's not that discrimination does not exist, it does exist. But somewhere along the line, I think it's competence, and I think it is certain other innate factors that a person has that takes them forward, and it is not just opportunity, because opportunity will be found by a competent person, is where I'm coming from.
What I am speaking of is when we lay the tracks of the level playing field, when you lay that sword down, when you lay down that maidan on which you're going to play, is let's look at merit, rather than privilege.
I would, more than merit, I would look at access to opportunity. I think access to opportunity should be for all. And then it can be decided whether who is more meritorious or more worthy of that position, that job, that opportunity. Where also, a certain degree of nepotism, a certain degree of networking does come in, but then can we legislate that?
I don't think we can legislate nepotism and networking because it doesn't make sense. As far as legislation is concerned, yes. As far things like corruption, okay, there's lots of laws, where capitation fee, as they call it, to get into colleges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's supposedly there, but all these laws are trashed and broken by the lawmakers themselves.
Yeah, but then we also have social initiatives which are, brought into play. Even policies by governments where in the backward, like we have in India, you have reservations for communities which are backward or which are minorities. Are
Sure.
given certain seats in colleges, schools, in job opportunities where there are government institutions like the railways, you have the police force. There is reservation that exists so that the backward can also access similar opportunities.
Of course, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, but do you know also in that backward thing, in the sense that those reserve seats are also very fought over, and then there is a price that everyone has to pay even for that reserve.
Yes. In fact, this is what I was told by somebody many years ago, talking of price, is that, I mean, I don't know whether this is, but even duty,
Yeah.
okay, when you're in the police force, duty in certain areas is also categorized.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and those are paid for.
My gosh.
So to be placed in certain places, we're not going to talk about that, to be placed in certain locations,
Which are more
okay, lucrative.
lucrative.
Recently, there was this case of this girl, a medical student, who killed herself. Okay, she was apparently a very clever student, had gotten to this she had gotten through her OBC class, she had gotten into a very good medical college, was looking forward to a very bright future as a gynecologist. And what was it that went against her? It was her caste. And the fact that she came, there were these doctors who were senior to her who were just angry with her, you know, about the fact that they kept throwing these things at her, saying that you don't deserve to be here.
In fact, that's a very common problem in this country. We have seen in many states where there is a clear division of communities and castes.
Yeah.
You know, the backward and the
SC,
more
ST.
risen, where they do not like the fact that the backward communities should be given those kind of reservations wherein they come at par with the others. Also, the flip side of it, Veena, is the fact that sometimes, because of the kind of reservations that are given, because of the kind of efforts that are made to bring them on par, sometimes certain percentage points are even added for certain communities to bring them on par.
Yes.
Yeah. Which then comes to the fact that were they really merit-worthy? So would you want a doctor who is not as good as maybe someone who didn't receive that reservation?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that is why I come back to that point, is that the level playing field should actually be made on, here is an exam, which all of you 80 people are going to be writing.
Yeah.
And whoever scores the highest 10 get this, the next 10 get that, the next 10 get that, in terms of what you've scored.
Yeah.
Not in terms of where you came from.
So exactly. So what we are looking at, as we have seen governmental interference in terms of policies, in many respects, and especially in the case of these reservations that happen where we want more parity to come forth, doesn't really work. It is the market and the economy and a free market that really decides who should the winner be and who will finally probably accumulate more wealth than the others. So wealth formation, wealth making, and everything related to success is decided by a freewheeling marketplace, not by policy making, not by you and me deciding what should be and what should not. That's I think one of the observations that I made. Now, it's quite a complex situation. It's not as simple as we make it out to be. There are many complexities to it. For instance, like if there is a business family, yeah, or there is a clique. These days we hear of people that work in groups and cliques, and they rather work with people within the same framework of things. Yeah. Now there are reasons behind that. For instance, in family businesses, there are trade secrets. Yeah, there are many things which can only be shared with that person who can really be trusted. So also that's the way it happens in groups and cliques, where there is certain information which can only be shared with certain people. You cannot really do things out of that framework, which is largely the reason why sometimes merit does take a back seat, but your connections, how you're related, and are you trustworthy, are you not trustworthy, comes into play. But then there are certain organizations that we have seen within the country itself, rather large business houses, which don't follow the same policies also, which are open, which are more democratic. And I think maybe, yes, that is the way to go. But then again, it's, as I said, very complex.
This thing about large business houses or businesses which have trade secrets and they don't want to share them, and so fine. And so therefore they don't. I don't think it's about that really, because yes, all said and done, let's say for instance a large garment chain of garment stores, okay, owned by a family. They are obviously not going to take some Nattu Gera, into the main core running of the administration of the business, because they want to keep certain things to themselves and they have enough of family members to do it.
Yes.
However, they may have a CA or an accountant or a lawyer, or somebody. That's the field that I am at least referring to.
Yeah.
So somebody is there. Now at that level, they aren't asking there, I totally agree, is all they want to know is the credentials of that person. Is that person capable?
Yeah, apart from capable, is he trustworthy? Trustworthiness is a big thing in business.
Sure, but when you have a CA, you appoint a CA or you appoint a lawyer for your business, your legal panel, that the first thing that you're going to check is its credentials.
Absolutely.
And the first thing you're going to look at is trustworthiness.
Yes, but then there is bloodline and then there are credentials. So bloodline definitely takes precedence to anything that credentials can offer. Because bloodline means that this is someone who is mine. He's going to take care of it just as I took care of it. And he's going to be as careful about it as I did. So there is a level of security there, which cannot be denied and completely put aside and said, no, it is not something that happens.
Having said that, I'm going with what is, if you look at the way the Udupi restaurants run.
Yes.
Okay, they're a great example when it comes to something like this. So here you have this one Udupi Shetty person who has a restaurant in Bombay. He brings all his people from the village. Okay, his cooks, everybody, one after the other, the waiters, even the cleaners, and they all, now that I find is a very democratic system, is because they all rise.
Yes.
Okay, he'll bring in these young boys who work as sweepers, cleaners, and who are doing all the washing, who will rise to being a waiter. Who will rise to taking orders, who will rise to taking a manager, and they kind of either send them back to set up their own thing in the village, back in Udupi, in the city, or to set up something else within Bombay itself.
Yes.
Fine. They, from what I hear, is that they don't give that little boy who is doing cleaning money. They don't give him a salary. They feed him, they give him place to sleep, all that. The money is sent to the family back home.
Yeah.
Okay, and in fact there's a case of, I won't mention names, of a very famous police inspector in Bombay who began his life as a cleaner in one of the Udupi restaurants, was educated by the owner of the restaurants and went on to become a very famous police inspector in Bombay. Films have been made on him. But that is another system entirely.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I'd like to talk about, I think we both would like to talk about, is the educational system. Okay, I have an issue over there with this whole, there is no level playing field as far as I'm concerned. And there's something that we were talking about, we were discussing earlier. So if you have kids who are from the A-lister schools, okay, and you have our so-called municipal schools and government schools in, let's say, Maharashtra.
Yeah.
Okay. Salim, just take a look at how their worlds different from each other. So even if you have this really bright spark kid in one of the municipal schools, okay, who's putting his or her head down and studying and getting to those levels and cracking the exams and everything. But once that kid reaches a certain level and has to get into, let's say, an engineering college or a medical college, a professional college, they don't have the capitation fees. So when you have somebody from a A-lister school, okay, who has every possible opportunity, definitely above, a kid who is coming from a government school.
So yes, Veena, I think there needs to be a redistribution of resources in the manner, what we are really talking about is what they call the equality versus equity model. Yeah, when you're talking about the equality of all, you're talking about sameness for all. Whether you're rich, you're poor, you're tall, you're short, everyone should be given the same opportunities. But when you're talking about equity for all, then what you're really talking about is giving those who are in need what they need to achieve success. Yeah, so that's in education. What comes in over there is scholarships. Yeah, so you have scholarships, but scholarships again have to be regulated for those who really need it, and it's not misused by those who already don't really need a scholarship, but want to take advantage of something, right? That is where it starts going wrong. That's where the manipulation happens.
You know, Salim, unfortunately, resources over here in India, and you hit the point. Scholarships are open exams. Okay, they're literally thrown open. I know this because I've had family members who've applied for scholarships through the years. Their children are now. Now when I'm talking about family members, so these are people who come from privileged backgrounds.
Right.
So do they really need that scholarship?
No, they don't.
But they still stand for it. They apply for the scholarships. They've given those exams and they have got them. So you have to make a bar. One of the things about education, Salim, in this country is that none of the people who are going to admit their children in A listing school or a B listing school are ever going to even think or have the idea in their mind of admitting that child into a public school. They're not going to, okay? And they balk at the idea if you even suggest it to them. This is what Arvind Kejriwal did in Delhi. He pushed the level of public schools so high and he pumped so much behind it that today public schools are better than the private schools. And that is now a model if anybody has to follow, because that has actually started turning things around where people are looking at public schools and saying, oh, like, damn, maybe I can send my kid there because it's better and it's cheaper.
Well, that's the case in India, as you're talking about, in Delhi, where the public schools the levels were raised up, and then you have schools which are all at similar levels, right? So there's nobody who's really going to a very privileged institution. But when you look at it across the world, you have selected schools, institutions, which are private colleges, like you have the Ivy League colleges. Yeah, you have a lot of other institutions which are education related, which are pretty difficult to access for just about anybody. So what do you say to that?
Instead of putting in 53% of your budget into defense and armaments, okay, and 4% in education, it can easily be turned the other way around.
I agree. I completely agree.
And you push a country up in a level.
Yes.
Coming to Ivy League schools, yes, extremely difficult to get into. However, within the country or within even otherwise, even kids who are appearing or who are people who are applying to Ivy League, who are applying to Oxford, to Cambridge, to London School of Economics, any one of these, they look at merit. If you look at their entry form, they're actually looking at merit. Yes, student loans are expensive, and student loans, even for somebody coming from a privileged background, are huge.
Yes.
But they have scholarships. But what do they first look at? The basic thing is they're looking at is a merit. So anybody of any kind of a background with a certain merit does have the opportunity of at least applying over there.
Applying, and now the other part of it is the application process itself is not cheap. Why? Because the basic application process to most of these very highly sought Ivy League schools and private institutions requires that you write an essay. Yeah, requires that you say all the important things that you need to say, which a counselor or someone who is very familiar with the process has made a business out of and is going to charge you for it. So again, the person who doesn't have that kind of resources will not be able to compete because they don't know the right essay to write, they don't know the right things to say, they have to be educated about it. So you see, the problem just doesn't cease over there. It goes on and on and on.
Let's take advertising for instance. Okay, look at the disparity that they create. When you have ads which say, save for your son's education and your daughter's marriage. I mean, there itself you're disrupting the level playing field. Okay, that's a gender bias. We've already had one whole episode on gender disparity.
Yes.
So you have educational disparity, you have gender disparity, you have economic disparity. So I don't have a solution, very honestly, for this, Salim. But yes, where is the level playing field?
Now, if you really look at it, Veena, we are a developing nation. Yeah, we are one of the fastest developing nations in the world, correct? There are the developed nations also who've been through the same trajectory that we are talking about. Yeah, they have kind of come to a better place than we have, but they are still not there. The same problems exist everywhere.
But if you are not going to put those privileges into, put the money, the budget into education, even simple education, look at some of our village schools, they're broken down.
Yes.
The teacher doesn't come.
Yes.
Okay, look at what happened recently. A school where a midday meal, which is a child's privilege in the country today, it's the right of a child in the country today. Those children were eating roti and namak, salt and chapati. There is a level of, there is a percentage of social empathy that exists.
Yes.
There definitely is that. One of them is, if you look at we come back to education because that's where the whole thing starts.
Yeah.
Is the Teach India movement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where people are asked to give their time.
Yes, and I have seen on one of the sidewalks here in Andheri, every evening there is this bunch of girls that come and then they are sitting with the books and educating the pavement dwellers' children, which I think is a wonderful thing to do. It is, of course, an example of social empathy.
Yeah, and
we need more of that.
So social empathy has set in and started set in long back.
Yes.
We need political empathy to come in so that the policies are put into place, so that people are made to do certain things where all where the field starts getting leveled out. Let's work towards creating a level playing field, that all of us feel that we can contribute to and that you can actually better the society that we live in.
So let this world be open and
Yes.
fair for all.
Absolutely. On that note,
we conclude, guys, and very happy to be with you again next week, same day, same time on The Daily Eye Show.
The Daily Eye Show.